You know that moment when you realize you're not 20-something anymore, and suddenly everyone around you seems to have their financial life figured out while you're still wondering where all your money goes every month. Maybe you're scrolling through social media, seeing friends buying houses, talking about retirement accounts, or casually mentioning their investment portfolios. And you can't help but wonder if you're falling behind. Well, here's something that might surprise you. Most people in their 30s are actually making critical financial mistakes that will cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetime. But there's also a specific roadmap that can completely transform your financial trajectory if you follow it during this crucial decade. My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time analyzing financial data, studying wealth-building patterns, and figuring out why some people effortlessly build financial security, while others struggle paycheck to paycheck well into their 40s and beyond. If you're someone who wants to understand the real milestones that separate financially successful people from everyone else, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you see your money situation more clearly. Now, before we dive into these game-changing milestones, let me ask you something. When you think about your 30s, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture settling down, buying a home, possibly starting a family, or finally feeling like a real adult. For most people, this decade feels like when life gets serious. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes that most people completely miss. Your 30s are actually the most important decade for wealth building that you'll ever experience. It's not your 20s when you're broke and figuring things out. It's not your 40s when you're established but potentially set in your ways. It's your 30s when you have enough earning power to make real progress but still have enough time for compound interest to work its magic. This decade is where millionaires are made, or where people lock themselves into long-term financial stagnation. Think about it this way. Someone who gets their financial house in order by age 35 versus someone who waits until 45 is looking at a difference of potentially millions of dollars by retirement. Not thousands, millions. Because money you save and invest in your 30s has 30 to 35 years to grow before you need it. Money you save in your 40s only has 20 to 25 years. That extra decade makes an absolutely massive difference. But here's where most people mess this up, and it's not what you think. The problem isn't that people in their 30s don't know they should save money or invest for retirement. Everyone knows that stuff. The problem is they don't understand the specific order of operations that actually works. They're trying to do everything at once, spreading their money too thin, and missing the milestones that create real financial momentum. Most financial advice treats money decisions like they're all equally important, but that's complete nonsense. There's a hierarchy to building wealth, and if you get the order wrong, you'll spend years spinning your wheels instead of making real progress. Some milestones are foundational and must come first. Others are accelerators that only work once you've built the right foundation. And some are completely optional despite what the financial industry wants you to believe. Here's something that will probably blow your mind. The average person in their 30s has less than $15,000 saved for retirement. $15,000. That's not even enough to buy a decent used car, let alone fund 30 years of retirement. Meanwhile, the top 10% of people in this age group have already accumulated over $100,000 in retirement accounts. Same age group, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't income level, although that obviously helps. The difference is understanding which milestones to prioritize and when. The people who are winning financially in their 30s aren't necessarily earning more money than everyone else. They're just being more strategic about where that money goes and in what order. So, what are these crucial milestones that can completely change your financial future? And more importantly, what's the specific sequence that actually works? Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the exact roadmap that separates people who retire comfortably from people who end up working much later in life. Some of these milestones might surprise you because they're not what most financial advisors talk about. Others might seem obvious, but I guarantee you're not implementing them correctly. The The first milestone is something that sounds simple but trips up almost everyone, and it has nothing to do with how much money you make. The first milestone is achieving what I call financial breathing room, and it's not just about having money in the bank. It's about reaching that psychological threshold where money stops controlling every decision you make. Most people think this means having a certain dollar amount saved, but the real milestone is more specific than that. You need to accumulate enough liquid savings to cover 6 months of your actual expenses, not your income, your expenses. And here's the part that most people get wrong. This isn't money you're planning to spend on a vacation or a new car. This is money that exists for one purpose only, to give you options when life throws curveballs your way. When you hit this milestone, something fascinating happens in your brain. You stop making fear-based financial decisions. Before you have this cushion, every choice feels risky. Should you ask for a promotion? What if they fire you instead? Should you switch jobs for better pay? What if the new company doesn't work out? Should you negotiate that contract or push back on unreasonable demands? What if they decide you're too much trouble? But when you know you can survive for 6 months without any income, these same situations feel completely different. Suddenly, you're negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation. You can take calculated risks because you're not gambling with your survival. You can walk away from bad situations because you're not trapped by immediate financial need. This psychological shift often leads to better career outcomes, which accelerates everything else we're going to talk about. People with solid emergency funds tend to earn more money over time, not because having savings directly increases your salary, but because financial security gives you the confidence to make moves that people under financial pressure simply can't afford to make. The second milestone builds directly on the first, and it's where most people in their 30s completely lose their way. You need to eliminate every single dollar of high-interest debt, starting with credit cards but extending to personal loans, car loans with terrible rates, and any other debt charging you more than 6 or 7% annually. Here's why this milestone is so crucial and why the order matters. If you're paying 18% interest on credit card debt, trying to invest money in the stock market makes zero mathematical sense. The stock market might average 7 to 10% returns over time, but credit card debt is guaranteed to cost you 18% every single year. You're essentially choosing to lose 8 to 11% annually by investing instead of paying off debt. Look, your 30s don't have to be the decade where you figure everything out perfectly, but they absolutely have to be the decade where you stop delaying important financial decisions and start making progress. These milestones aren't suggestions. They're the difference between financial freedom and needing to work far longer than you planned. Start with milestone 1 today, because your future self is counting on the decisions you make right now.